In the far western reaches of our country, drugs plague the streets, homes are largely unaffordable, and a woke government continuously degrades what it means to be a British Columbian. If this sounds familiar, it's because BC Premier David Eby is in many ways a carbon copy of Justin Trudeau. Two radical ideologues hell-bent on making life harder for normal working-class Canadians. But in BC, the NDP majority government seems to operate with impunity, which is why it's so cosmically shaking that John Rustad's Conservative Party of BC is polling ahead of David Eby's NDP. So why is this happening now? How will Rustad fix Canada's westernmost province? And will BC finally have a Conservative premier again in October of this year?
Is the NDP the party for workers? Absolutely not. They're the party for the elite leftist academic classes who want to, do decriminalization experiments on our most vulnerable people. If we're supposed to be having these good faith discussions behind the scenes about, how we could possibly cooperate, and then he's going out and bashing our candidates, why would we now want to work with you?
All that and more on this week's BackTok. Since 1991, with the fall of the right-wing Social Credit Party, British Columbia has been governed by the left-wing BC NDP and the centrist BC Liberal Party, a coalition between federal Liberals and federal Conservatives. But since Mr. Justin Trudeau has fallen out of favor, to say the least, with rational voters, the BC Liberals embarked on a complete brand change, with a new name BC United and a new leader in Kevin Falcon. But this has been a catastrophic failure, with BC United polling equal to the Conservative Party of BC in September to now polling the same as the Green Party, and looking like they won't win a single seat in the province. According to Kevin Falcon, this has to do with voters being confused and tricked into supporting the BC Conservatives.
The BC Conservative Party is a separate party. It's not connected to the federal party at all, but they benefit from having the same name. And so that creates a lot of voter confusion.
But is this actually true? I asked that question to the president of the Conservative Party of BC, Aisha Estey.
So I don't think it's accurate. I think that we are well beyond any notion of confusion. I think that this is brand recognition. When people hear the name Conservative, they know what principles and values we have. And I think that there's more relief that there is a Conservative option on the provincial level. And there's clearly been an appetite for a Conservative Party in this province for a while now. And BC United wasn't providing that option. So we've come in and taken strong positions on things, and that's resonating with people.
I think that the principled stances that we take and not compromising our values is attractive to people, and I think it's a bit of a breath of fresh air. And if the federal Conservatives are doing that too, then that is what it is. We're just principled Conservatives, and I don't think we should be labeling voters as too stupid to understand the difference between a federal and provincial party.
No, absolutely. And I mean, of course, we want there to be similarities drawn between us and the federal Conservatives. We are all supporters of the federal Conservatives and the provincial party. But we want to offer, for provincial jurisdictional issues, we want to offer those Conservative policies. And we're not afraid to take strong positions on things so that we present as a very clear alternative. And I think we've been successful in doing that. And I think the voters are relieved and excited to have that option on the provincial level now.
But voters are certainly not excited about Mr. Kevin Falcon. A recent poll shows he's by far the least favorable provincial party leader in BC. This is after BC United apparently spent a ridiculous amount of money on TV ads showing off their leader. So what is it about Kevin Falcon that turns off British Columbians?
I think Kevin Falcon, he comes from a party that brought in a lot of policies that people don't like anymore, such as the carbon tax. So he's got that sort of stink that is remaining with him and has been hard to shake.
I was always proud to be part of the government that brought in North America's first revenue neutral carbon tax, and I'm really, really proud of that.
And when he tries to switch positions, instead of acknowledging that they were maybe the wrong positions to take or the wrong policies, or now they're wrong. He just changes positions. And he does that. We see him do that on a single issue, multiple times in one day. He's chasing votes. It's very hard to predict what position he is going to take on any issue, because he's not operating from a set of principles and values, it appears. So, he's seen us take a strong position on things and that it resonates, and then he'll come out with the same position. So I think voters can see very clearly through that. And it's not somebody that they can trust to be predictable. And I think that, voters know that we can be predictable because we're operating from those sets of values and principles.
I think that's 100% right. And talking about flip-flopping, the other week he comes out and, whatever happened in the media, people on the inside leaking stories to the press, claiming that Brad West is in talks to lead some merged party. And Kevin comes out and says he's all in favor of working together and collaborating.
He is one of the most recognizable politicians in the province, and the full court press is now on to make Port Coquitlam Mayor Brad West the leader of a newly merged BC United BC Conservative Party.
Earlier this week, BC United leader Kevin Falcon said the two parties were talking in private to, quote, find common ground, but BC Conservative leader John Rustad threw cold water on the rumor in a statement posted online saying a merger is, quote, not going to happen.
Rustad comes out and says that's not going to happen. And then the next day, Kevin says, we don't want to work with them anyway. They're a bunch of radical, crazy people.
We can't merge with BC Conservatives. And I want to be clear, they're not connected to the federal Conservative Party, because the BC Conservatives have candidates that have very extreme views that would be unacceptable to most British Columbians. I expect most Canadians.
So he's even flip-flopping on internal party merger talks and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. So, if we're supposed to be having these good faith discussions behind the scenes about, how we could possibly cooperate, and then he's going out and bashing our candidates, why would that? And you're in a position of, weakness. You're at 12%. So why would we now want to work with you?
Especially considering the momentum of the BC Conservatives. If United really wanted to get rid of David Eby, as Falcon claims, there seems to be only one option left for BC United, and that's to completely fold. Their very existence is helping David Eby's electoral chances this fall. But is that really a huge problem? Is the NDP really that bad? After all, isn't the NDP supposed to be a party for the working class? When I was growing up, I always imagined, and what I was told by my parents, and I think the average voter considered them, a workers' party, the party for the middle class, perhaps the lower middle class. But as time's gone on, they've moved away from their, supporting resource industries, things like that, and they don't really seem to be a workers' party anymore. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. I think the NDP is now a very far left activist party. I think they have abandoned the working class. They have made life so untenably expensive for people in our generation to live and work here where we were born, in the beautiful province that we want to live in for the rest of our lives. I got into politics relatively recently compared to all the other people in the leadership positions in other parties. Why am I doing this? Because I'm in my early 30s. I'm new into my profession, and I want to be able to live here for the rest of my life. But the people in government in the last 6-7 years have made it so expensive that people in our generation are fleeing, and investment is fleeing. No companies feel comfortable coming to BC because it's so unpredictable to do business here.
Right.
It's an extremely risky investment. And for people my age, do you want to stay here? Or do you want to move to Alberta, somewhere where the cost of living is lower and you'll be able to buy a home? So, is the NDP the party for workers? Absolutely not. They're the party for the elite leftist academic classes who want to, do decriminalization experiments on our most vulnerable people. This is not John Horgan's NDP anymore. This is David Eby's activist left-wing organization. And it's not resonating with voters. It's becoming impossible to live here. We need to get back to what makes BC such a great place to live.
There's a lot of negativity when people think about politics, and I think it's obvious of why that's the case. Justin Trudeau has been in power for 8 years. The NDP have been in power for quite some time, long enough, going back in my memory, I was just started entering the political sphere at the end of the BC Liberals run. But I think it's important for Conservatives to provide a positive vision for the future, and that's how we'll attract undecideds. So are you positive about the future of British Columbia? And I guess if so, why do you have an optimistic outlook?
I am optimistic. I wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't. I think that we do need a change in government on the federal and provincial level, and on the municipal level in a lot of cases as well. I don't think that a lot of municipal governments have been doing a great job to make municipalities attractive to live in. So there's work to do at every single level of government. But I think that Conservative governments are the way forward to making this, an easier, more attractive place to live. And I am optimistic that we can turn things around here. We need to do it quickly. We're heading towards, levels of debt in this province that we've never seen before under this NDP government. And it's our generation that's going to be paying for that for the rest of our working lives if we don't get in now and fix that. So that's why there's a sense of urgency to me to get involved in politics. If you're going to sit and complain about, the state of things, how expensive it is to live here, how it's impossible to see a doctor, how it's, seems impossible and an absolute pipe dream to buy a home. Well, those are the consequences of the people that you vote for. We just need to pay attention to who is going to give us that bright future where everyone is doing well and not just the elite.
Very well said. And on that note, I encourage everyone to go to conservativebc.ca and check out the platform and the ideas that this party is presenting, and consider buying a membership as well. Aisha, thank you very much for doing this. And I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Grant. Thank you for having me.